Hi, everyone. It's Paula Brown, President of Americans for Homeopathy Choice. And I'm a little out of breath because I just went up and down the stairs like 5 times. I'm home alone today, and I had a rooster trying to come into my kitchen. Then my alarm on my phone downstairs went on, and I had to put my dog in the bathroom because he'll bother us. Anyhow, here I am, and I'm happy to be here with you guys. We have a really great show coming up today, and it's our last day of our pledge drive. Thank you if you've been with us all 5 days. If you have not been with us all 5 days, oh, wait, I need to hit record on, I need to go live on Instagram. I always forget you have to press that button separately. Okay, so welcome. Paula Brown, President of Americans for Homeopathy Choice here. And I'm very excited, very happy to be with you all. And today's our last day of our pledge drive. We have had an awesome week. We've spoken to a lot of really interesting people and we've had a really good time. We had Noel Peterson on Monday, Miranda Castro on Tuesday, Todd Rowe on Wednesday. If you haven't heard of him, he's a homeopath psychiatrist, so he's a doctor. Then we had Sue Meyer, who a lot of you guys know and love. And today we have two speakers, and I can't wait to introduce them to you. And we actually have a bonus gal too for kind of our in-between sessions. So all of that to say, we have a really great show happening right now, and I'm just really happy that you guys are all here. If you guys could just take one quick second right now and forward or share this video, this live video with everyone in your Facebook groups, on your personal page, and bring more people here to join us because this is going to be an awesome discussion. They're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it. And yeah. Okay. So without further ado, let me just kick off and share with you what is happening today. Oops, here we go. All right. So today, actually, let me start at the top here. Today's day 5. Our theme has been Rooted in Healing, Rising in Hope. This is a pledge drive. We are fundraising. We are moving along, and our goal is to get to 45,000. So if you guys can help us close this gap right at the end on the last day today, that would mean a lot. We would be so thankful. It takes a lot of energy and a little bit of money to keep this organization running. So it means a lot if you guys could step up and donate any amount, even $5 would be great. One really great way to support us is actually by joining our Bear Pack. Our Bear Pack is someone who donates $25 or more a month. That's like this cup of coffee a day or a smoothie a day, whatever. And we actually give you guys a lot of love and a lot of gratitude. We have a vault that you guys can access some of our best videos and interviews. You guys receive exclusive discounts, exclusive updates, and so we're really, really thankful for you. So please do consider donating today on the last day of our pledge drive to help us reach our goal. Okay, we have some awesome sponsors we have to thank. These are them. We are so thankful for your support, everyone. You guys mean a lot to us. Some of these are businesses that sell homeopathic products. Some of these are schools. Some of these are private practices that consult with homeopathy. So thank you, everyone, for your love of homeopathy. Today, our sponsor of the day is the International Academy of Classical Homeopathy. They're a big supporter of Americans for Homeopathy Choice. We are so thankful for all that they do and yeah, their generosity and their kindness. So we really love working with them and they're a great school. Also, if you have not heard, there's a survey going around. We would love for you guys to participate. There's a tiny URL for it. It's just /homeopoll at tinyurl.com. And if you go there if you're a practitioner or a physician, because this is the international group that is doing some research around the practice of homeopathy. So they would love to get your input. All right. During Pledge Drive, we have some coupons that you guys can participate in. And this coupon goes for another week. So if you do Rooted 2025, you will get 10% off any of our products in our shop. And so you can definitely go there. And we actually have what we're featuring today is our 2026 calendar. We have made a beautiful remedy calendar that you can get on our website at homeopathychoice.org/shop. And this calendar features a different remedy every month. Our girl Friday, Michelle did this for us. It's beautiful. It has really great ways to like remember the remedies on this calendar. And we actually have important dates on the calendar that is super awesome. So you can get that calendar right now at 10% off. So I think it's really great. Okay. We also are giving away every day this book by Sue Meyer, Homeopathy for Mommies. It is a physical book. And so if you are watching this live, you get to enter in the giveaway. So invite your friends, tell them to come, and maybe one of you guys will get the giveaway. Just look at the comments because Michelle and other helpers are telling you exactly what you need to do in order to be entered in today's giveaway. And we will announce it at the end of the show. So you will win within the hour. Okay, and then anyone who's donating, you get 12% off at Miranda Castro's shop. We will send you a coupon if you've donated. And she's giving us 12% off. Think of 12 cell salts. That's kind of the theme behind it. And today, let me introduce to you our two speakers. We have Dr. Ron Whitmont. He's going to be first. He is a medical doctor and homeopath out of Rhinebeck, New York. He's a second-generation homeopath, which I think is pretty cool. I've talked to him lots about his dad and just the background they have in homeopathy. He trained so he has his MD from, is that Sunny Health Services Center in Brooklyn? So he went to school in New York. No, SUNY. That's it, not Sunny, SUNY, but it looks like Sunny. And then he trained at St. Vincent's Hospital in New York City and Reading Hospital in Pennsylvania. And he's a board certified internal and integrative holistic medicine. He served in rural India, Pine Ridge Reservation, and in the U.S. Navy. He's a past president of the American Institute of Homeopathy and the Homeopathic Medical Society of the State of New York. That's what that is right there, HMSSNY. And he's a former professor at the New York Medical College, which I think is really cool. So he's currently the president of the NHPCB, which we're going to talk about today, and the AIH, and he's he's our medical advisor at Homeopathy Choice and an international lecturer and author. We're also going to be talking to Kathy. So we're going to talk to Ron first, then we're going to talk to Kathy. But she holds a BA in history and a master's. Is that an MA? Master's in social science education. She was a classroom teacher, a homeschool mom of 4. I know some of her kids, and they're really awesome. And she enjoys time with her grandchildren. So I'm actually going to do something kind of fun today because in addition to these two speakers, we have a gal named Jennifer Kiefer who's going to be talking about being on the homeopathy action team. And so we are going to bring everybody together and we're going to have kind of like a group discussion. All three of us are going to first talk to Kathy to Ron, and then all three of us are going to talk to Kathy after that. So without further ado, I'm going to stop my share here. Go ahead, everyone. Unmute yourselves, say hello. Actually, I'll have each of you introduce yourselves because we're going to go into speaker mode because that's how it works better for Instagram. So we'll start with Ron. Say hello, Ron.
Hello, Ron. How are you?
Very good. This is Dr. Whitmont. Then we have Kathy.
Hello, happy to be here.
And then we have Jennifer Kiefer.
Hey guys, thanks for including me on this, Paula.
Very good. So let's jump in with Ron first. Ron, what are we talking about today? And then Kathy and Jennifer, just chime in if you guys have any questions or anything. I tend to kind of be too verbose, so get my attention if you need to.
Well, we're talking about weathering the storm, I'm told. And
that's right.
I have to share that I am an avid camper and a hiker, and I don't believe that there is bad weather. There's only bad clothing. So weathering the storm in political times, which I think is what you're referring to, it also means the same thing. There's no such thing as a bad political time. It's just how do you prepare for it and what do you do? And I think that's kind of the theme for tonight, right? What are we doing about it?
That's right. Cotton kills, right?
Cotton kills. Good, you got that right. Cotton kills when you're outside. And the equivalent of here is conventional pharmaceuticals may kill. You're not wearing your polypropylene homeopathic clothing.
That's right. That's right. Well, good. So, you guys, the NHPCB is working. So first of all, what is the NHPCB and why is it so important? Let's start with that.
Good question. So the NHPCB stands for the National Homeopathic Product Certification Board. And that means this was a group that was formed by the American Institute of Homeopathy. And if you don't know, the American Institute, or the AIH, is the oldest existing and continuously existing medical society, national medical society in the United States. The AIH was formed 2 years prior to the AMA, when that was formed. And the AMA was partly formed to fight homeopathy, which is a little tidbit of history. So the NHPCB was formed in response to the FDA. And when the FDA came out, they had a meeting in 2015 about homeopathy. They generated a draft guidance, proposed draft guidance in 2017, I think it was. And then they revised it in 2019 and finally made it formal in 2022. And the NHPCB was formed in 2020 to push back against the FDA, essentially to determine to provide standards for homeopathic products and to provide a method of certifying whether manufacturers were producing their homeopathic medicines according to the right standards.
Mhm.
And we communicated with the FDA over this, and they said, yes, this sounds good. You should go ahead. And when we developed standards, they kind of came back at us and said, you're creating private standards. Those already exist in the homeopathic community. That's not what we're interested in seeing. We're interested in seeing transparent public standards, which up until this point have not existed in this country. And I'm not sure if they may exist in Europe, but they don't exist here in the United States. And so that's why actually, after working vigorously for a couple of years, the NHPCB has hired a group called the NSF to create standards for homeopathic medicines. And these will be public standards that will be produced in a consensual process with members of the community participating, members from the industry, members from the public, and providers, and members who are from the regulatory category. And these will be produced publicly in a fully transparent process, and they will become known as American National ANSI standards. And ANSI stands for the American National Standard Institute.
Okay, so this is a lot of information. And if you're not familiar with this space, this is a very good thing. So let me kind of back up a little bit. Do so we have basically in the United States, we have these medicines that are homeopathic that are sold on shelves. And you're saying that there are not like official public standards that have been developed for those medicines to be on the shelves. Is that right?
That is correct. There
So,
are private standards that exist, but you have to subscribe to get those standards.
okay.
And they
And
were
then,
not produced in a public format.
so I don't know about Jennifer or Kathy, but one of the logical questions people might have is, well, what about the HPUS? Don't those have standards?
So it's a very good question because the HPUS, the Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia of the United States, has guidelines for the production of homeopathic medicines. They are not standards, and nor were they produced in a public forum where people could have input and people could actually change those standards or modify them in any way.
Well, and
They
the
were produced
HPUS is
behind closed
really
doors.
the HPS is really old, and this is just how it was done a long time ago. So
Yeah.
they're an old entity, just like the United States Pharmacopoeia is an old entity, and a lot of these started kind of behind closed doors, private entities doing this. But over time, the way that it is done nowadays is to do a public standard setting process, and the HPUS is invited, as well as others in the homeopathy community, are invited to participate in the NHPCB process.
Correct. And this all came out of our meetings with the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, when we started meeting with them in 2020. And they said there are no standards in the United States that we can rely on. And we said, well, okay, how do we get there? And that's what they have endorsed this process. And actually, they're legally required to follow standards that are established through a public consensus process.
So here's the beautiful thing. Like it or not, we live in a modern world, and the FDA likes these public certified type standards, standards that were developed in a way that is public and transparent. That's the kind of standards that FDA likes to see. And so what would happen if we just said, no, we want, we would like to make the FDA pay attention to the HPUS, but that's not how it works. FDA has their standard for drugs. They have their by law, they either FDA has to make their own standards, or someone on the outside has to make standards that FDA accepts. Those are the two options. So, given these two options, the homeopathy community decided, don't think I want the FDA to make these standards for us. I think we want these standards to be developed by the homeopathy community in an inclusive and transparent way. Is that right?
Yeah, and in fact, you first started saying what would happen
Right.
if these standards didn't exist. And what is happening already is that the FDA has a guidance, which they finalized in 2022, which said, what did it say? It said homeopathic products are unapproved new drug. They fall into the unapproved new drug category, and they're being illegally marketed in the United States because there aren't any existing standards that the FDA accepts for them.
That the FDA
That's
accepts.
what happened.
That's the challenge. And this is a difficult, challenging process. This isn't an easy thing to do, but actually a lot of you guys remember Jim Turner. He was our attorney for many years, and he kind of helped us get on this track. This is one of the last things he helped us get started before he passed away. So I think that's really cool. Okay, I have a question for Kathy or Jennifer. What did you guys understand that Ron just said? Tell us what you understood, because this is a mouthful, and maybe we can make sure everybody else is understanding.
So, as a mother and grandmother who uses homeopathy to keep my family healthy, what I understood is that homeopathic medicines have been around for hundreds of years. They're widely used worldwide, and they're safe and effective and gentle, but they haven't had the modernization in the legal pathway, whereas other categories of medicines have. And so it's time that we do something to protect homeopathic medicines as the unique category of medicines that they are. And what I saw happen over the last several years, I got involved with Americans for Homeopathy Choice about 7 years ago. But what they did instead of the FDA and our regulatory agencies modernizing the process, they just tried to fit, as Paula says, a square peg in a round hole, or a round peg in a square hole, and they categorize them as unapproved, as though they should go through the new drug approval process that pharmaceutical drugs would go through. And so when it was finalized in 2022, what happened was exactly what we feared, and whole entire categories of homeopathic medicines have started to disappear from the marketplace. So for my own family, we can no longer access the homeopathic eye drops that we used to use. So what I'm hearing from Dr. Whitmont is what we're doing is a comprehensive solution to this problem. We don't want a Wild West. We want to know what's on the bottle is in the bottle. So we need a system that does that. And so through this process and what we're doing with Americans for Homeopathy Choice on the legislative side, I think we're coming forward with a viable solution that's going to protect these medicines for future generations.
That's right. And I like what you said about modernizing, because every drug category needs to have standards that they follow in production in order to come to market. It's a little frustrating that homeopathy even needs any standards, because the way that we've made homeopathy is the same from the beginning of when it started. It's not like we're coming up with new drugs that might kill you. You know what I mean? It's highly diluted. It's very safe. However, like it or not, homeopathy is a drug and it needs standards. And if we don't have the homeopathy create standards in a way that FDA accepts, then we're leaving ourselves vulnerable to either having the FDA do this for us, which we don't want, or the FDA just kind of blasting us into oblivion because they're not there. They don't want to make the standards. Therefore, you can just die out. That makes sense. And so our legislation kind of works hand in glove because our legislation recognizes for sure the HPUS and any kind of ANSI accredited standard process, which ANSI accredited means is transparent public standards, that are developed. So it's like we would say that this is the law and this is how homeopathic medicines come to market, and a big part of that is making sure we have good standards. So, Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, I think that you and Kathy really kind of summed everything up. There's really not too much more to add to that. But I do just want to say that as a person who is not always in the inner circle, and I don't have the privilege of always meeting or hearing Dr. Whitmont speak, just being a HAP member, you guys really make sure that when these more intricate and more detailed and more, I don't know if behind the scenes is quite the right word, but you guys make it digestible for people like me who are just on the team and we're going through the training and things like that. So, but I think you guys covered it perfectly, so that it should be digestible for everybody that's listening.
Well, very good. And I think the word you're looking for is not behind the scenes. It's the word you're looking
Right.
for is more than you ever wanted to know. That's what it
That's
is.
correct. Yeah, because these aren't really like terms and definitions that we're like all out searching for. And then when you're on the HAT team or you're joining the HAT team, you're not quite sure that these things even exist or what's even happening. So it's nice to hear these things in more detail and yeah, like not behind the scenes, but yes, what you said.
Yeah, more than you ever wanted to know. And I think the reason we need these
Right.
standards is simply because drugs are so dangerous, and so drug law and drug regulation has gotten super bloated, and simply because homeopathy is categorized as a drug, we have to do some things to mirror what they're doing. We're kind of being punished. We're kind of being punished for how crappy drugs are, but it is what it is. We live in the world we live in the country we live, and we have to keep up with it. So what else should we know, Ron? What else do you want to share with us?
Well, I think there's two things I wanted to say. One is that you've already mentioned that we are working hand in glove with Americans for Homeopathy Choice. And what that essentially means is that once legislation is in place and Congress directs the FDA to recognize homeopathy as a unique specialty and a unique form of medicine, that there will need to be public standards available, so that FDA can say they're doing their job. And the FDA, the way things are now, if you go to Wikipedia or if you go to the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, which is part of the NIH, they'll tell you that there is no benefit from homeopathic treatment. Therefore, the FDA, the public face of homeopathy in terms of the government and the FDA is that if there's no benefit, then no risk is acceptable. So this has to change. And there's just multiple prongs on this fork that have to be addressed. And part of it is legislation, part of it is standards, and part of it is getting the science out there so that people can see that it does exist.
Mhm. Well, what I really like about this process, because there is so much in our government that happens behind closed doors, like actually behind closed doors. There's a lot that goes on in special interest groups, lobbyists, whatever, doing just a lot of sneaky stuff. And what I love about the NHPCB is like it has to be transparent. You cannot become an ANSI accredited standard setting thing without following the ANSI standards. And the ANSI standards are painfully transparent. You have to bring stakeholders from all parts of the homeopathy community. And yeah, and so people who have consumer perspectives is required in the standard setting process. Practitioner type people with public health experience. And it's actually been a bit of a pain to make sure that everybody has been invited and included in the process. But I actually have a lot of respect for that because that's really And to FDA's credit, listen, don't make me compliment the FDA too much because that's like, drinking vinegar. But to their credit, this is the kind of things that they legally are obligated to pay attention to
Yeah.
if it's done in this way. So it's kind of a way of forcing the FDA's hand to follow what the homeopathy community thinks is appropriate for homeopathy as far as just standards go, just as far as standards go.
And we're not inventing the wheel here. This is how other industries do the same thing. The whole non-GMO project was based on setting standards for what is considered a GMO. There's a National Animal Supplement Council. There's there's the Personal Care Products Council. Even the United States Pharmacopoeia Convention has set up standards. So it's not the first time it's being done. It is an industry standard, and that's a maturation of homeopathy.
That's right.
If we can achieve this.
Really, when we learned about this thing, this ANSI thing, we realized like this is long overdue for homeopathy. And this is a little bit part of why homeopathy faced the scrutiny that it faced starting in 2017. And I remember we really wanted the HPUS to become an ANSI type body, but they have a lot going on and they just said this isn't something. So the AIH stepped in and said, then let us take this on. We will help. And you guys are included in the process, just like the community has to be included. And I think that's really great. I think that's very collaborative and the way we should be doing things. Okay, we're getting a couple questions, Ron. I think I can answer some of this, but let's see what you come up with first. How is homeopathic medicines regulated in India and Cuba? Do you know? Come on, quick. Tell us.
I don't know. I can tell you that in India, there's Ayush, which stands for Ayurvedic yoga, and then a couple other things, including homeopathy. The government recognizes homeopathy in India, and it is, I believe it's part of the National Health Service, but I can't guarantee that. I'm not positive. But
well, yeah,
more above ground there.
Yeah, essentially, I know in India, they just like we have a Food and Drug Administration, they have their own Food and Drug Administration. Then they have the Homeopathic Administration, like they have their own agency, all for homeopathy, and that's what he was referring to, the Ayush. So, everyone has different laws, everyone has different regulations, but I will say, when a country comes out with something very formal and firm, like what you guys are doing at the NHPCB, when you come out with something like that, a lot of times other countries will forego doing their own thing and say, let's adopt what America did, or let's adopt what so-and-so country did. And so this is something that could bless not just homeopathy in the United States, but around the globe if this gets picked up. And, because some countries might say, well, if there are standards developed for such and such that are ANSI accredited or, voluntary consensus standard accredited, which ANSI is one of the options for that, then they will incorporate that into their own system. And so this has happened before. We actually considered this, like, does anyone else have something that we can use? Do we really have to do this? And essentially there wasn't anyone else that had something that we could just pick up, legally speaking. And so we said, we better just do this ourselves. Okay, so what else do we need to talk about, Ron? Did we talk about both things that you said?
So I just wanted to clarify one thing. The National Homeopathic Product Certification Board, or the NHPCB, was formed, as I mentioned, to actually certify homeopathic products, but we got sidelined. And we hope to go back to that certification process once these standards have been set. And the NSF is actually taking that task up. And when the standards are done and packaged and certified or accredited, then the NHPCB will return to its original mission, which is to run a certification process.
Guys, do yourselves a little favor, or do a little game with me sometime. Sometime that you're at the store looking at I guess you're not looking at Tylenol, but just let's say you were, or even a homeopathic remedy, pick up the bottle of like some product, supplement, whatever it is, herb, I don't care. And look on the bottle and see if you see the letters NSF. So NSF is basically involved in helping companies produce products, and they're actually quite friendly to supplements and herbal type products. They're not just in the conventional drug field. And what's really great is they have achieved a status that is very difficult to achieve. And they are ANSI accredited. It's very difficult to become ANSI accredited. And so the AIH essentially had, okay, do we become ANSI accredited and become like equal to NSF? But this is where Jim came in, and Jim was like, no, 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 you don't have to do that. That's really hard to do. Instead, why don't you talk to NSF, go under their ANSI umbrella, and they will help you develop standards. It's almost like NSF has all these departments. For herbs, they've done it for the herbal products. They've done it for other, categories. And so they'll have their own department, which is a much more streamlined way of becoming ANSI accredited.
Yeah, we actually had to hire the NSF to do this. So
Mhm.
we are supporting them through the process, but they're doing the process. We are not. They are doing it. They're running it, and we are providing the fuel that's going to distill
And the
the
expertise.
understanding. And we're helping them with the expertise.
Yes. And that was really encouraging to me to see that they'd worked with other in the natural health space, like herbs
Yeah.
and things like that. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, anything else? Any questions, Jennifer, Kathy, or Ron? Anything you wanted to add? No? Okay.
I don't
Well,
have any questions, but it was very interesting.
yep. Awesome. Very good. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and shift here. I'm going to switch over to telling you guys a little bit more about our pledge drive, and then we're going to talk to Jennifer about how awesome it is to be on the homeopathy action team. So, just a reminder that we have our Bear Pack that we would love for you to join. It is an awesome group, and we have some Bear Pack members that have been with us for years, and we love our Bear Pack. They actually get an email every month with some insider progress reports on how we're doing. We give you guys detailed information about everything that we accomplished that month, what we're working on, what took up our time. So we really love our Bear Pack, and we like to keep you guys in the inside loop. Also, right now and into next week, you guys can join the Homeopathy Action Team. Enrollment will close on September 28th. Guys, I have some really good news. We've really streamlined our training. So Jennifer, when she's going to talk a little bit, she went through arduous, painful training, which you do not have to go through. So we would love to tell you guys a little bit more about that, but we would love for you guys to join the Homeopathy Action Team. Hopefully all of our speakers this week have helped you feel like, okay, I can do this. I could advocate for homeopathy. And so please do consider donating right now this week. We really do need your support. We're at 28,000, hoping to get to 45,000. And I'm going to be announcing at the end of the show a giveaway. So be sure you're watching this live and you're participating to make sure that if you get announced, you will win this book by Sue Meyer, which was so generous of her to donate. So Jennifer, it's your turn. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about why you're on the HAT team and how that works.
Okay. I joined the HAT team 5 years ago, and I joined knowing nothing. I mean, I had used homeopathy for a few years, so I was very familiar with that. And I was very passionate about homeopathy and that being our mode of healing in our home. So when I heard that you had been doing the HAT team for Americans for Homeopathy Choice for a few years, I jumped on that. And I started with the arduous training that you were talking about. And honestly, when I started, I believe I was actually printing it off on the computer. It wasn't in Basecamp, and it wasn't
Yeah, there was a
streamlined.
handbook. Yes.
Yeah. So I was printing all these things and making binders. And anyway, it's come a long way, and it gets better every year. So like I said, I started knowing absolutely nothing, but the people that are on the HAT team and the leaders of HAT are all so incredibly knowledgeable, and they're so devoted to making sure that we are well informed, as you can see with just what you'll hear from Kathy later and what you just heard from Dr. Whitmont. they don't leave any stone unturned. So you definitely go into things prepared, and they do kind of shove you into the arena, the legislative arena, meeting with staffers, your representatives, and that's been exciting. And so I do encourage people to join, even if you feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any knowledge of legislative anything. That's not really a problem because you guys provide the training to do that. And my office in particular has come a long way. And I like I said, I started with nothing. I started with going to meet them at coffees, and then they were speaking on college campuses, and so I'd go there, and then it was at dinners, and it was at breakfast, and you just keep popping up, and you just keep showing your face, and you just keep making these little connections, and then before you know it, you have like a full-blown relationship with these people, and prayerfully everyone stays in their spot, and so you can keep building on these. Sometimes it does happen where your staffer will change or your representative will change, but you guys have all the tools to even get through that. So you really don't leave anything, any questions, everything's always got an answer. So it's been great for me. As you can tell, I'm here 5 years later. So
I love it. I'm so thankful when people like you show up and you stay consistent. And I think it is a really exciting announcement that the state captains all came to me, Jennifer. I don't even know if you knew about this, but the state captains all came to me in a meeting and they said, we really need to simplify the training, particularly as some big things are planned for this year. And we have some really big goals that are expected to come to fruition this year. And so they said, with that shifting, it seems like the training can be streamlined a little bit more and simplified. And we think it's going to be really achievable. So if someone joined the hat team before and you haven't come back, just know this is the water's warm. This is the time to come back. Kathy, did you want to add anything or ask Jennifer anything, Kathy? Or Ron, you're allowed to too.
No, I just concur with everything that Jennifer just said, and she's an amazing congressional lead. She's been faithful, and I think that's the key, is just don't give up. I think that if you don't worry about the results, but you just worry about doing your part and stay consistent and build that relationship and just be kind of a light in the darkness, where every month you're just kind of reaching out to your staffer, giving them an update, and it's polite persistence, and it makes a difference over time. And Jennifer's amazing, and she's just such a great example of that.
Well, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. And you are too. You're a great mentor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, great. And then
to Kathy's point about, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's exactly right. Go ahead. I think you're thinking
Well,
the
I
same
was going to
thing.
say, to Kathy's point too, about being consistent and just showing up, when they keep seeing familiar faces and you just do these little things, like going to your coffee with your congresswoman or congressman or whatever you have, it really makes a difference. Because even I've been out shopping in just a regular store and I'll see my staffer and I'll be like, oh, hey. And they're like, oh, hey, how are you? And, you either shake hands or you give each other a hug. So it really does make a difference. And even if your district might not have anyone in it, for years, I was the only one in it. And then I did kind of like grab a friend and she joined in. So now there's 2 of us in our district. But when I reflect on the what if I didn't join, or the what if she didn't join, our district would not have a voice. And our district has a really big voice, I believe. And Paula, you can speak to that if you want to, but my representative has been extremely helpful from the get-go. And she's been very consistent. And I just think about, like, what if we weren't here in this district, and we have a very large district. And so it does make a difference. Just one person in your district can make a huge difference. It's an extra signature on a letter. It's an extra voice when it's time to do appropriations. It really matters. Just one person can change your whole district.
That is so true. When we have an active HAT member, especially lately, we've needed a couple of districts or a couple of help with a senator or such and such. And when we don't have someone that's active, it just like crushes us. We're just like, oh man, because there's me, then I've got to do it. I've got to do it all for that district and figure
Yeah.
out and scramble and find people with relations. It's a lot more work. And so if you guys could step up, it would mean so much. Ron, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I'm just in awe of the work that you guys are doing. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I agree. More people should be doing it.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. Well, let's shift into Kathy then. We've got 20 minutes to go before our show's over. So, Kathy, you're talking a little bit about kind of a different direction. We went from the technical stuff with Ron, and now we're looking at the moms. So, tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought that was an important aspect to talk about because, of course, we've got our professionals in the homeopathy community who are at the forefront. But then there are those of us who are families and individuals who depend on this medicine. And we're what I would call the grassroots. And it's so important that we make our voices heard. And as I learned a little bit about the history of homeopathy, I was delighted to find out that homeopathy in the United States has always been a mother's movement. It's very interesting to me that Constantine Herring, who emigrated into the United States in the 1830s, brought with him his homeopathic practice. And one of the things that he created was a domestic kit. And it was basically the very first homeopathy kit. And they were available in the local apothecaries, which were the drugstores of the day. And mothers loved these kits because they could purchase them and they could bring them into their homes. They could use them over and over again. And very likely prevent unnecessary doctor visits. And if you think back to the time period, doctor methods of the day were pretty brutal. They did some things that we've learned were, just really out there and not beneficial. And, often people didn't even survive their treatments. But mothers realized that homeopathy was gentle, but not only gentle, it was effective. And when they realized that it was gentle, effective, it could be used in the home, that it was actually beneficial for their children, they led the way in spreading the word. And so they made such a big impact in spreading the use of homeopathy in the United States that by the 1900s, homeopathy was very prevalent in our nation. And so much so that they actually dedicated a monument, and it was the first monument to a foreigner. And the foreigner was the German physician, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who was the mentor to Constantine Herring, but also the father of homeopathy from Germany. And I had the privilege of visiting the monument last week. We had a leadership team that went to Washington, D.C. as part of a My Health Alliance event. And we had meetings with our congressional offices. And we can talk about that if you want to, Paola. But I just wanted to mention that I had the joy of really taking my time and looking at the Dr. Samuel Hahnemann monument, which is beautiful. If you've got the opportunity, first of all, just Google it. But if you can go to DC and see it in person, it's one of the most beautiful monuments in the city. And it steps away from the National Mall. It has Italian tile behind Dr. Hahnemann's head. And when the sun sets, it just glows. And it's just stunning. But the one thing that really stood out to me this time when I got to visit was one of the phrases that's on the monument that's written in German. I looked it up, and it means gentle power is great, which is homeopathy. It's the magic of the minimum dose, but it's also speaking to our grassroots effort, because that's what we're doing, what Jennifer and myself are doing. We're just being that gentle power that just keeps showing up, just keeps building relationships, and we're able to affect change just in our small and gentle way, kind of like homeopathy. So I thought it was neat to maybe just kind of reflect on how homeopathy was started as a mother's movement in the United States, and then also, realize that it is a grassroots effort, and there are mothers and grandmothers and others who are leading the way to protect the legal status of homeopathic medicines and keep it accessible for ourselves, our families, and for future generations.
That's exactly right. There's a lot of good stuff that you said there. First, we'll start with Constantine Herring, and Ron and Jennifer, feel free to chime in. But it was actually quite controversial what he did to create it when Kathy meant a domestic kit. So this is a kit for mothers to have at home, and it was really controversial because back then it was seen that no, you need to call a doctor for help, and maybe they were trying to protect some of their market share. They wanted to get called in to get. Ron's nodding, yes, and I get it. Doctors got to make a living too, but what do you think, Ron?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is so much. I agree with what Kathy said. So much is still true today that, we're still fighting against treatments that are dangerous and hazardous, throughout medicine. And people get dismissed when they question these treatments. But I wanted to say one other little detail, which I think is kind of interesting, that not only were moms behind the homeopathy, and moms were behind homeopathy as late as the mid 20th century, when homeopathy kind of went underground for a while. But moms were behind the first Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act that was ever passed in the United States, the 1906 Pure Food. I think it was called the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act. Took place after Congress had been haggling for about a decade over what they were going to do about food safety and drug safety in this country. And it was the moms, and it was particularly the moms that were in the General Federation of Women's Clubs and the Women's Christian Temperance Union that got Congress off of their butts and got them to do something about safety and regulation. So yeah, you guys are so important to what happens, and you should never say, "Oh, I'm just a mom." That's ridiculous. You are one of the most powerful, can be one of the most powerful groups, and really lead to change. And you've done it already, and you can continue doing it.
Well, and as far as women go, and Kathy, you're a history major, so I know this kind of stuff really interests you, but yes, like women in the 20s and in the 30s had a huge role in sustaining and advancing homeopathic medicines. There was a lot of leadership in women's organizations, and they organized local and national homeopathic societies, clubs, auxiliaries. They advocated through hospitals and charities. Mothers promoted family health. Like I said, it was controversial for Constantine Herring to create this domestic book, but women wanted this and they started to advocate for this, and it just grew and grew. And what's even interesting is that some of the female doctors in our country were graduates of homeopathy schools. It was the homeopathy schools that first allowed women to become doctors and enter medicine, and African American people to also become doctors and enter medicine. So actually, it's funny. I was reading Laura Ingalls Wilder, like the books. And I remember there's this one book where the whole family gets malaria, and Laura was kind of literally this happened. Laura was kind of in and out of illness and not feeling well. Not obviously she had malaria. And she remembered that her doctor that came to treat her was the first Black person she'd ever seen in her whole life. So this was kind of a vivid memory, in her feverish dreams, that there was this person that she'd never seen before. And I was like, that's too weird. It is too weird for a doctor in this time period to be treating a family. Was he actually a doctor? Was he like an herbalist? So I looked up the doctor's name because she puts the doctor's name, and he was a homeopath. She got treated with homeopathy. To her, it was just the doctor. And so, kind of going back to women and that theme, yeah, we had a huge part of so much when it comes to medicine, in our country. And Ron, that is really interesting about mothers being behind the promulgation of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Because originally the purpose of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act was they wanted to know what was on the bottle was inside the bottle. They wanted to know, is this actually aspirin or is it chalk tablets? They wanted to make sure that there was some sort of like process for these medicines to be called drugs, and so yeah, mothers lost children to bad drugs. They wrote letters, gave testimony, demanded stronger safety laws. Again, women's clubs, consumer leagues, like they called them home demonstration agents. They were all part of doing these letter writing campaigns to Congress. I think the most notable one was the General Federation of Women's Clubs and the Women's Joint Congressional Committee. I have like these old notes that I did a long time ago. They lobbied Congress heavily to get the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act passed. And so, I mean, our grassroots team, right, Kathy and Jennifer, it's not all girls, but it is predominantly girls. It is a lot of girls, women. And we stand on the shoulders of our sisters who, for decades and, many, many years have been advancing our family's health. And I can say for myself, and I know for Kathy and Jennifer, we're worried about our kids and the kind of medicine they're going to have access to in the future. Go ahead. Anyone have thoughts?
I would just like to say yes, and I've seen that we're making a difference. And if I can just share just a personal story about why I got involved with Americans for Homeopathy Choice. My granddaughter has life-threatening food allergies, and she's 9 years old now. When she was about 2 years old, she had a reaction, and I happened to be in Paola's homeopathy study group, and I was learning about first aid remedies, and I learned a remedy that could help in an allergic reaction situation. And so before my son-in-law could even get the diaper bag and kind of fiddle with the EpiPen and try to get it opened up, I had already given her one homeopathic pellet of a remedy that was suitable for the reaction that she was having. And within seconds, we just watched these symptoms melt away. And so here we are, she's 9 years old, and she's never had to use the EpiPen because we've always been able to manage her allergy symptoms with homeopathic medicines. And so I got involved because I could not bear the thought of losing these precious medicines once I discovered that they were available. And I told Paola, I'll do whatever we need to do. And of course, you organized us into this movement. But as I started out with my having my meetings and meeting with my congressional staffers, I remember being part of the Mama Bears who went to the first trip in April of 2019. And I spoke to my senator's staffer, and he told me, frankly, he was very nice, but he told me very frankly that, your senator doesn't care about this issue. He only cares about the campaign promises that he made. And so this isn't on his radar. And, basically said, this isn't something we're going to help you with. I was able to speak to that same staffer last week, fast forward 6 years, and come back. And I've been keeping in touch with him all of these years, sending him updates and having follow-up meetings. And here we are 6 years later, and he's enthusiastically telling me about natural health options, the homeopathic allergy drops that he's currently taking, and how they're working really great for his seasonal allergies. And we have a rapport, and he's enthusiastic about my issue. So I just share that to say that, it pays off when you just press on and keep on and don't give up, and just know that when you're on the right side of history, you just do the right thing and it'll fall into place. And that's what I've been able to experience. And so I'm hoping that I can encourage others to get involved, because we should all be concerned about losing our freedom to choose, our preferred medicines. And so, as Jennifer shared, we make it really easy. If you think that it's outside your comfort zone, it may be, but it's so doable. We're going to give it to you in bite-sized pieces. We've fast-tracked the training, so we're going to just give you what you need to know, and so that you'll be fully equipped to be able to start building those relationships with your congressional offices. And there's 535 offices, and I think we've got maybe 2/3 of them covered, and so we need a lot of help so that we can have all the offices hearing from all of us and getting our message across to all of them. So I hope I'm encouraging you to just please consider joining the HAT team.
Jennifer, any thoughts to add?
Well, I'm excited about the new training that's coming out. I think it's a testament to the amount of people that have stuck with the program year after year after year, because we don't need to keep going through the same stuff every year, because we keep evolving and growing and moving forward. We're not stuck at the beginning. We have moved forward so much that you've had to revamp the system. So I think that's great. And I think it just kind of ends up being a benefit for the new people that'll come on, because it's broken down even more into those bite-sized pieces that Kathy's talking about. So it's totally doable. I did it homeschooling my kids. My kids are graduated now, but 5 years ago they weren't. So I was in it. I was in the thick of mothering and motherhood, and it's great. And it's great, like Kathy's saying, just the generational changes that'll be made from my kids passing the baton to them. I mean, I don't have any daughters, but I have boys. I have all sons, and they do know their homeopathy. I'd like to, pour into them more, but they're always on their own program. But they will share with their friends. They'll be like, "Oh, you have a sore throat. You need this," or "Oh, you have," and so they're helping their friends, and their friends are like, "Oh, what's this?" So it'll be a generational shift, and that's great, and that's worth it to me, even just for that. So
Yes.
it's an awesome program to be a part of.
I totally agree. And there's a lot of benefits of our kids watching their mothers do this kind of advocating and this kind of work. I know, Kathy, you're really passionate about that, aren't you?
I am. And one of my daughters was I think she was an older teenager when I got involved, and she would listen into my study groups and listen into all of my state captain meetings and the different things that I was doing for Americans for Homeopathy Choice. And she became very knowledgeable as she went through college. And she started assisting me with study groups and helping me out with some different things on social media. And at one point, Paula was asking for some help on the leadership team. And I said, I have a daughter who would be great for that position. And sure enough, now she is my colleague with Americans for Homeopathy Choice. And she was able to travel with me to DC last week. And we're working together as a mother-daughter team now, an adult daughter who's kind of grown up into it. And my grandchildren, it's the same way. I was actually reading a Bible story to my grandson this morning. He spent the night and we had a little quiet time. And I was able to kind of just have a little teachable moment, but it was the story of the king who wanted everybody to bow down to the statue. And there were those who did not want to bow down, and they had to say no to the king. And I told him that, and sometimes in history and sometimes in the world, there are leaders who don't give you a choice and you don't have freedom and you have to do what they say. But in our country, we have the ability to talk to our leaders, just like Grandma went to see the leaders last week. And I was able to talk to the leaders and tell the leaders, that we need to protect homeopathy for our family. And so it was just a teachable moment. It was very sweet. But I do believe, more is caught than taught. And they see what we're doing. And I think that it makes a difference in them. And that's how we change the world. Kind of going back to that quote on Hahnemann's monument, gentle power is great.
Yes.
I love it. You couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself, Kathy. And I really do. I think that we're standing on the shoulders of other sisters and mothers, of history. And it feels really, really great to be part of this kind of, generational legacy that we have picked up the torch. And it's because of people like you. I did a little bit to organize it, but really, like, this would be nothing if other people didn't step up. And we have people that have come and made this organization better. I'm thinking of like Laura, how she created our grassroots team and how that has been so important. So we're just so blessed. We're so blessed. So many people have touched this movement and blessed it and left it better. And we are needing you guys to step up with donations today and with your time, because there's two forms of currency in Washington, as Jen liked to say. There's time and there's money. And so we are asking for at least one of those forms of currency if you could donate to them. So I think it means a lot. Well, we're at our time. Ron, did you want to give any closing thoughts? I've kind of given Jennifer and Kathy a minute here. Any final thoughts before we go?
Didn't Jim say there's people and money?
Yes, I guess
People and money.
time meaning the volunteer effort, the people and money. Yeah,
And Jim's phrase that he kept repeating was, keep up the good work.
that's right. That's right. That's the last thing he said to me before he passed away. That's right. Well, I'm going to finish up the show here, Kathy and Jennifer. And actually, there was one question that came through that I had missed. Going back to the NHPCB, does this mean that this NHPCB, when it's in place, that the FDA will be required to back off the removal of homeopathic medicines from the market? Will we get back the products that have already been removed? It is a big step in the right direction. That, coupled with our legislation, is really what we're looking for, is really the pathway that we're looking for. So Yes. So the answer is it's a big step. It's not the only thing, but it'll be a big part of that. Right, Ron?
Agreed.
Yep. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to finish up here. The three of you need a skedaddle, that's fine. You're welcome to stay too if you want to watch the rest of the show. But I'm going to share my screen here, and Michelle should have inputted the winner of that book, this book here, Homeopathy for Mommies. But just to finish up, at the beginning of the show, we were at $28,439. We are trying to get to 45,000. So we do hope that you guys will step up in the next 24 hours and help us reach our goal. Big congratulations to Lori Hamilton. Oh, look, Hamilton Morrow. There's Michelle typing it in as we speak. This is a Google Drive document. So you have won. Thank you so much for being here with us live, Lori. We just so appreciate you. You have won Sue Meyer's book, Homeopathy for Mommies Beyond Acute Care. To get your prize, go and email her at bearpack@homeopathychoice.org. And guys, please, please donate or join the Homeopathy Action Team. You can do both from our homepage on our website. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. We love you. We'll talk to you later. Bye.